5.2.1, Mr. Gundrum from the county had told us that he recommended to our council that we defer taking any action. The clerk has advised that we don't need to take action at all. We don't have to do anything about this or put a resolution that says we defer. We can just proceed to defer. But I do understand that there was a question request from Councillor Rothwell. So Councillor Rothwell, if you want to come off mute and ask your question. Is David Gundrum on board? Okay, so David, a question from Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the question for David is regarding the county's process, what they're doing for public meetings as a result of the ministry's change in or giving of permission to deal with public meetings. And is it going to be the same as what we in North Perth are dealing with?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Rothwell. Through the mayor, to answer the question, I guess the county has not established a process for hosting public meetings under the Planning Act currently. The public meeting process under the Planning Act is currently suspended at the county level until further notice. So we do not have a process in place where we would be able to bring this application forward at the present time for the Land Division Committee to consider it. The meeting that was otherwise scheduled on our calendar for May 4th for Land Division Committee will not be going ahead at the present time. I don't have anything further to update you on beyond that, which is the direction that I've been given from our manager currently. That said, delaying recommendation on the applications this evening would not cause any further undue delay beyond any delay which is currently in place on account of the pandemic situation that we're dealing with at the present time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And yes, I think you've touched on an issue that we're also trying to work our way through. I'm not sure that there's been all that much ministry guidance with regards to how we actually execute, although I think there was something late last week that started the ball rolling at least. So there will be more action soon to figure out how we implement public meetings and delegations to council. So stay tuned, I think is the message. Okay, any other questions or comments for Mr. Gundrum on item 5.2.1 before we move on to the next item? And invite Clerk Fairfelds if you have any desire to ask a question. Yeah. Remember, if you want to ask a question, just type in me. Okay, looks like we're not seeing any indication of that. So let's move on to item 5.2.2. For this item, we're asked to issue a letter of concurrence for an application by 5 Wireless Inc. to erect a new radio tower just east of Listowel. This is certainly a new type of request to me as mayor. I'll invite North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz to explain this request to us. Sean, welcome.
Hello, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council, and good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. So it's just the one item from me tonight, which has been requested from Carl Viroba on behalf of 5 Amigos Wireless Incorporated. They are seeking a letter of concurrence from the municipality in an effort to complete the required consultation process in support of a proposed 76.2 meters or 250 feet communication tower, which is to be located at 5607 Perth Line 86, just east of Listowel. The proposed FM radio tower will support an antenna system for a new radio station serving the North Perth and surrounding areas. The federal government regulates communications facilities through Industry Canada and are not subject to municipal or provincial planning approvals. Additional regulatory authorities, include the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, NAV Canada, and Transport Canada. Industry Canada requires that proponents seeking to install or modify antenna systems consult with local land use authorities. Additionally, Industry Canada process requires the proponent to investigate sharing or using existing infrastructure before proposing new antenna supporting structures, contact the land use authority to determine local requirements, undertake public notification and address relevant concerns, and satisfy Industry Canada's general and technical requirements, and then they can go ahead and complete the construction. Five Amigos Broadcasting Incorporated has proceeded with the public circulation and consultation, which was undertaken in accordance with the default Industry Canada public consultation process. Information brochures were sent to the immediate neighbors of the proposed site, and a newspaper posting was also included in the Listool banner. The commenting period completed on April 6th. The notice also provided information pertaining to locating on existing towers, which were deemed not feasible. No public comment or concern was received, and staff has no concern pertaining to the consultation process associated and acknowledges the conclusion of the consultation procedures. As such, staff is recommending that council concur with the resolution that was put forward. Thank you. And I can address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Planner Yilmaz. At this time, councillors, if you have questions or comments to make about this, please identify yourself through the chat function to Clerk Bearfelds. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I just have a question around getting some clarification about what concur means, because typically we approve motions or approve projects like this, but just different vocabulary. So just wondering how this is different.
Sorry, if you don't mind. So basically, this isn't actually an approval because these radio towers are not subject to municipal or provincial approvals, but they are subject to do a consultation, and that includes connecting with the municipality and advising us of what their work is, and that they're going to complete the consultation process. That information is relayed to us, and we verify that they have actually done that. And we also verify that no, or if any comments or questions arose, that they were addressed. And for this particular situation, no questions or comments were provided or given. So basically, we just look at all this information, and once we determine that they have met what the standard process is, then we would just say that we're satisfied as a municipality, and council usually would just agree with that, basically, and then they would file this letter of concurrence as part of their application.
Anything further, Councillor Andreessen?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Clerk Bearfelds indicated their interest. All right. So I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth concur that the proposal by Five Amigos Broadcasting Inc. to erect an FM radio communication tower installation on lands known as Part Lot 45 and 46, Concession 1, 5607 Perth Line 86, Elma Ward, is fully compliant in the municipality's opinion with the requirements of Industry Canada's Radio Communications and Broadcasting Antenna Systems Protocol CPC-2-0-03, and all obligations for the municipality and public consultation requirements of the CPC have been satisfactorily met. And I call on Councillor Johnston to serve as our mover for that.
I would move that.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, would you serve as seconder?
Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, yes, I will second that motion and approve.
Thank you. Councillors, any discussion or debate? If so, please indicate to the clerk through the chat function. Seeing no indication, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Brings us to item 5.2.3. This is an item where we are asked to consider promulgation of an agreement with the City of Stratford as service provider related to the provision of emergency childcare services during the COVID-19 pandemic period. I'll ask Clerk Bearfelds to explain the initiative and where we sit. Just hold on for me for a minute here. I have to mute myself to make that happen well. Okay, let's do that.
Sorry, can you hear me now, Counselor? Sorry. So as mentioned previously at the beginning of the meeting, Mayor Kirstenberg referred to the fact that we are moving forward with emergency childcare at our North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center. I have been working closely with the representative at the City of Stratford, as well as having all the policies and procedures approved from the health unit, the here in Perth health unit. Tonight, I'm asking council's authority for the mayor and myself to enter into a memorandum of understanding. This sets out the responsibilities for both parties, and hopefully that we can move forward with receiving applications from essential workers and setting out a work plan. I have spent most of my day today in training with the SpinRite staff, and everyone is quite willing and ready to move forward. So tonight I just need council's approval for the mayor and myself to proceed.
Thank you, Clerk Bearfelds. Council, if you have questions at this point for Clerk Bearfelds, please enter me in your chat window and we'll call on you in appropriate order. Okay, so Councillor Anstedt, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you, Pat, for the work on this. I know it's a very important initiative. Just a question. You mentioned the application process. Is that going to be through our website?
Yes, the intent is on our municipal website. We're going to have a button that'll say emergency childcare. That will then take you directly to the site of the City of Stratford, who will then receive all the applications. They will do the screening and make the determination as to who will be eligible. So as soon as I can, that button will be available on our municipal website.
Okay, thank you. And just if I could, Mayor Kasenberg, just supplemental. I'm assuming we're going to be advertising this through our normal channels to get the word out to the public as well?
Certainly, we'll be using our social media and our municipal website to make sure that our local essential workers are well aware of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Clerk Bearfelds? No one else has indicated. Okay, so I have for consideration both a resolution and a bylaw, councillors. The first is the resolution that reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorize the Mayor and Clerk to sign a memorandum of understanding with the City of Stratford for the provisions of emergency childcare as a result of COVID-19. And I invite Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as seconder?
I will second the motion, yes.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If you'd please indicate so to the clerk through the chat window. Seeing no indication of same, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And now we have the bylaw for this. The bylaw reads as follows. That bylaw 59-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the city of Stratford, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Seiler, can I call on you to be our mover for this one?
Thank you, Mayor Keisenberg. I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw? Any indication there, Pat? Okay. So let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you on that matter. That moves us forward to agenda item 5.3. And there is no report indicated from our interim manager at this time, which means we will move on to item 5.4. For item 5.4, we are asked to consider a bylaw to establish tax rates for 2020. I will ask, Director of Finance and Treasurer Fran Hale to explain this proposed action to us. Fran.
Mayor Keisenberg, members of council, as council has passed the 2020 budget, we are now in a position and have calculated the tax rates that correspond with that budget and have them available for council consideration this evening under bylaw 57-2020.
Thank you, Treasurer Hale. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments on this matter for Treasurer Hale? Please indicate to the clerk through the chat window. Seeing no expression of that, I have for consideration a bylaw, that bylaw 57-2020, being a bylaw to establish tax rates for the year 2020, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, and be sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover here?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you second that?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate at this time? Councillors, indicate to the clerk, please, through the chat window. Seeing no indication, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 5.4.2. Council is asked to authorize through bylaw the establishment of tax collection policies and procedures. This is an update to earlier policies and procedures. And I assume again, Ms. Hale, you are our introducer to this matter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Keisenberg, members of council. In reviewing our tax collection policies and procedures, we wanted to update them to clarify any billing and collection practices that the municipality has in place, especially since the last couple years we've introduced a number of electronic viabilities for members of the public. Anyway, at this point in time, we have updated them. We're presenting this for council consideration. And I do want to underline, however, that the penalty and interest that council has provided relief for at previous meeting will stay in place until the end of July. But then this policy would be enacted now, with that being that those reliefs are in place until the end of July.
Thank you, Fran. Councillors, any of you have questions or comments about this? Oh, we got someone's unmuted here. So seeing none, I have a resolution or a bylaw resolution for us to consider, that bylaw 58-2020 being a bylaw to establish tax collection policies and procedures for the municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. And that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and be sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I invite Councillor Duncan to serve as our mover for that.
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor as our seconder.
I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, please indicate to the clerk through the chat window. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next, we have item 5.4.3. Everyone check your mute status, please. Council is asked to authorize an approach to handling non-sufficient charges or NSF charges on declined payment transactions occurring in the pandemic period and up until the date of July 31st, 2020. This is ultimately an extension to other recently approved policy and practices related to deferrals of late payment charges and interest on various municipally issued service bills. I'll invite again our Director of Finance and Treasurer, Frances Hale, to comment. Ms. Hale.
Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council, I feel that the mayor has aptly explained what our request is. We've come across the fact that in relieving the interest and penalty, that this goes hand in glove with that, and would like council to consider forgoing us charging the NSF charges until the end of July of this year. And of course, as we are going to look at the penalty and interest at the end of June, we'll include this charge at that time for review again as well.
Thanks, Fran. Councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Rothwell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Question for Fran. Does the municipality, is it charged by the bank if we try to process an NSF check?
Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, to Councillor Rothwell, we do have service charges that we do incur. However, we have a package, so it's not on an individual basis at this time, but we do charge then the taxpayer or water sewer payer for that sort of charge in terms of the time it takes for us to process it in-house, and I believe they would also get not only a charge from us, but probably from their own financial institution as well. So at this point in time, we'd like to relieve our charge, which for our time at this time.
Thank you. Just supplemental to the mayor. Can you just remind us all what is the current fee for an NSF charge by the municipality?
I'm sorry, I should have been prepared for that and should know it off the top of my head. But to be quite frank, I just don't. But I will let members of council know that as soon as I get off here, I will look it up and email you that response.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else with questions or comments at this time? Okay, so sorry. Okay, so I have two resolutions here that are for our consideration. The first relates to the report, and it reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will receive the report entitled Accounts Receivable Interim Policy Proposal Addendum, dated April 20th, 2020 for information. And I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be the mover for that.
Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, yes, I will move this motion.
Thank you. And can I call on Councillor Richardson to be the seconder?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate at this time? If you wish to, please draw to the attention of the clerk. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And next up, we have a second resolution that actually enacts some of this, which reads as follows. That the municipality of North Perth will waive non-sufficient funds or NSF charges on all declined payment transactions from March 24th, 2020 to July 31st, 2020. Regular billing and due dates for property taxes and other services will continue with pre-authorized payments unless customer withdraws from their pre-authorized payment option. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to move that?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as seconder? Councillor Seiler, are you on mute? You're on
Yes, I will second that.
mute. Thank you, Councillor Seiler. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Hale, for those items. Now let's move on to item 5.5 on our agenda. And for this item, the Manager of Environmental Services has drawn to our attention 3 items tonight. First, let us consider item 5.5.1, a request from the Middle Maitland Rejuvenation Committee to use the parking lot at the municipal building associated with the 2020 annual river cleanup. This is the grant of permission should the cleanup be authorized, and of course in our pandemic period, that may or may not be the case, something that I expect Mr. Hackett will speak to. Recall, of course, that measures associated with the COVID-19 pandemic will in fact not permit at this time that cleanup under usual expectations. So we believe that the permission is contingent on the event being allowed to proceed. I'll invite Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to address this item. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. The Middle Maitland Rejuvenation Committee is a volunteer group that it works to improve the water quality and the flow of the Middle Maitland River. As you mentioned, the uncertainty of the current COVID situation makes these activities dateless for now. And we're hoping that in the future we'll be able to move forward with these activities. So I'm just going to go through the list of them. As you mentioned, the annual river cleanup, which was scheduled originally to take place Saturday, May 2nd, has been postponed for the time being. There's also a student eco tour that would have included a planting at the North Perth wastewater treatment plant. That's with students from the Listowel District Secondary School. They normally do a spring and fall planting, so that we're hoping that we'll be able to at least have the fall planting. They also do a Yellowfish Road program for elementary school students. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in the fall. And also something new this year was a tree pruning workshop that was going to be held at the Listowel Memorial Park. So I'm not sure if that would be able to move forward at some point this year, depending on the date. So we're hoping to be able to move forward with these events. And once the dates are determined, we would inform council of those dates. And that's it.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mr. Hackett from councillors? Please indicate your expression of interest in addressing a question through the chat window. And we're not seeing anything, so let's bring on the resolution, which reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth allow permission for the MMRC to use the municipal parking lot at the municipal building for the 2020 annual Maitland River cleanup. I invite Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for that.
Yes, I'll make that motion, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, will you serve as seconder?
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Again, indicate your interest through the clerk. Seeing no expression of interest, let's have that vote. Councillor Duncan, we're missing your vote. Councillor Duncan, are you there?
I'm in favor. I didn't receive any vote screen on eScribe.
Okay, thank you. So with his vote, that's carried. Thank you. And now we'll turn our attention to item 5.5.2. Council is asked to receive minutes of a manager review meeting and the current North Perth water systems operational plan as information. Again, I'll invite Mr. Hackett to speak to this one. Mark.
Yes, the management review procedure that's part of the North Perth Water Systems operational plan requires that there's an annual management review and that the minutes from that meeting are provided to council for their information. We're also required by the operational plan's communication procedure to provide a current copy of the plan to council after the management review is complete. I believe that was done by email. The top management, which is identified in the operational plan, meets to evaluate the continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the QMS. They look at the effectiveness of the QMS and the related procedures, the ability of the municipality to implement the QMS, the provision of adequate resources, and also look at consumer satisfaction. So these minutes were provided. They contain items that we looked at during this meeting to look at the internal audit results, the compliance inspection reports, flow data trends, water quality reports, and maintenance records were also reviewed. The meeting was held on March 26, 2020. We did, because of the current issue with COVID-19, the meeting was conducted remotely using WebEx. The minutes are attached. If there's any questions on any of those, I'd be happy to address those.
Thanks, Mark. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments about this item? Seeing no indication of same from clerk, I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the attached management review meeting minutes dated March 26, 2020, and the current North Perth water systems operational plan as information. Councillor Behrens, can I call on you to serve as mover for that one? Councillor Behrens? You might be on mute. Okay, Councillor Behrens? Should I move forward? Okay, Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to serve as mover for this one? Okay, I see Julie now. Councillor Behrens, can I call on you to serve as mover for this one?
Yes, I would move this motion, but I do have a question for Mark on the op plan.
Oh, okay. Did you want to ask that now?
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Let's get that out of the way. Yep.
And we did receive the operational plan by email, and hopefully this is the area where I'm supposed to ask this question. Some of the appendixes were incredibly interesting to read with the characteristics and history of each well in the process description, but my concern is on page 29 of the operational plan, where it's talking about the competencies, and it's talking about individual identified staff, the required competencies and the desired ones. And I believe both the chief operator and the utilities operator too need to have a second look at, because they're both the same in those two categories, and in all of the rest of them, they're not. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hackett, did you have any comments on this?
I don't have it open in front of me, but I think what you're referring to is that they're required to have a level 3 operator certificate. So that part is actually, both of them need to have that to be able to act as the ORO for the system. So I'm not sure. I could look into it further and provide you more information if you wish.
Okay, I think it would be prudent for us to do that, so we can put that as a follow-up for you. It looks like Clerk Fairfelds has a comment. Just let me adjust my settings here so that we're not.
The operational plan was sent out Friday morning as a notice for the agenda to be published, but I did actually just resend it to you just as Councillor Behrens was speaking, for those that may not have received it.
Okay, so it has been sent out to us. I think a follow-up on that matter that was recommended by Councillor Behrens to your attention should probably happen. Any other questions or comments at this point on this report? Okay, so Councillor Behrens, if you're still willing, you'll move that.
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, are you with us? Councillor Duncan? Okay, maybe I'll skip on to Councillor Johnston. Would you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. So now we need to have the appropriate vote for this one, unless there's further debate or discussion. Let's just check to see if there's any debate or discussion on this. Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. Okay, so Councillor Duncan, we're looking for your vote. I'm beginning to believe that Councillor Duncan has had technical problems and left the meeting. Councillor Duncan, one last shot here. If you're there, it's up. Okay, so he's having some technical issues apparently. Okay, so one last shot here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I seem to be back in, except my video is down still. Yes, I'm in favor.
All right, thank you. Mark him in favor, and that then is carried. Thanks. And now we should mute yourself. Okay, that brings us to item 5.5.3. And we have a little bit of wordsmithing maybe in the resolution that we need to look at. But at least I take a note of that. Council is asked to receive minutes of an infrastructure review meeting and the WQMS infrastructure review report as information. Mark, do you want to speak to this one?
Yes, I could. The infrastructure review report is required as part of the operational plan. And for this meeting, we have the CAO, myself, the manager of operations, and all of the waterworks staff, including the administrative assistant and the chief operator. And we meet on an annual basis, and we look at the existing infrastructure components that includes well system buildings, treatment process equipment, distribution system elements, and system hardware and software. We do this to determine the priority needs. To do this, we look at previous infrastructure reviews. We look at water audits, water work staff recommendations, Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks inspection reports, and also review maintenance records. We use this information to plan and budget for the future, and this is all included in the attached minutes from the meeting that was held on October 31st, 2019. And you can see on the second page of the minutes, there is the list of things for the next 10 years. This is not set in stone at this point. It's just kind of using it as a planning tool to set priorities for the next 10 years and to have an outlook for that time period. So that's my report. If there's any questions.
The resolution that's showing in eScribe doesn't seem to be correct against the resolution that was in your report. I believe it's the intent to use the resolution that was in your report as the basis for our resolution tonight. So I'll just draw that to council's attention that I'm going to read the resolution off the report as opposed to what is in the book here. Let's consider then where we're at here. Any questions or comments for Mark about this one? Okay, I have, the clerk is notifying me that Councillor Richardson might be interested in that.
My apologies. That was just for audio confirmation on Councillor Duncan just prior. So my apologies. Nothing referenced in this report.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to ask questions or have comments about this matter? Okay, so now I'm going to try to read the resolution for our consideration here. This is found in your report that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the DWQMS Infrastructure Review Report and the attached Infrastructure Review meeting minutes dated October 31st, 2019 as information. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to serve as mover for that?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, can I get you for the seconder on this one?
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing no indication of same, let's have that vote. Okay. Councillor Duncan,
I'm
your vote.
in favor.
He's in favor, so that is carried. Thank you. All right, that moves us along to items 5.6 and items 5.7. We have no reports this evening from our manager of operations or from our fire chief. I know they're working hard. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda. And for item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees at this time? Again, to request the opportunity to speak, to make those requests, please indicate in the chat feature of the web conferencing tool. Anything? Okay. We have, moving on to item 7 then, we have received no items of correspondence beyond that already shared for council's disposition. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. And we have no additional bylaw proposals before us tonight outside of the numbered items on our agenda that aren't otherwise addressed. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any notices of motion from councillors attending this evening? Thank you. That brings us to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you would like to speak, please so indicate in the web chat window. And the clerk has indicated that Councillor Behrens has something. Councillor Behrens, please. You're on mute still.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit confused between the mute button and the headset button, so my apologies. I just wanted to say that this week is National Volunteer Week, and we see volunteers from all across our region helping in every way they can to brighten other people's day. They're working alongside our dedicated frontline healthcare workers and our essential workers to help shield the most vulnerable in our community. And I just ask everyone, every day this week, just try to be thankful for everything that volunteers do behind the scenes that no one sees. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much for that. It is absolutely a pleasure to see the spirit of volunteerism alive and well in our community. This pandemic period has demonstrated a lot of that too, and we're particularly grateful that our community is rising to the challenge. So to our volunteers, we thank you. To those who are watching our volunteers, as Councillor Burns has said, say thank you. And don't forget that we have an awards program for volunteers in our community. I'll take the moment to make a shameless plug for our Celebrate North Perth volunteerism program. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Behrens. Any other councillors wish to make announcements? Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 11, which is related to a closed session of council. We do have an item that needs to be addressed in closed council meeting tonight. So I have a resolution to enable that. Before I do so, I want to describe the process that we will undertake. When we have passed this resolution, we will ask all staff and others who have joined the WebEx part of the meeting to exit the meeting unless you've been specifically invited to continue and to remain as subject matter experts on the materials that we will address. We will do a count before we begin the closed session to see who is on and who is not on, and make sure that it is limited just to councillors and those staff who've been invited. So I have a resolution for our consideration at this time related to entering closed session, which reads as follows: that this committee proceed in camera at 8:33 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board regarding property described as Block 38 and 44M-41, Listowel Ward. And I invite Councillor Richardson to serve as our mover for this.
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell as our seconder.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, Council? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Duncan, we're still looking for your vote, I guess.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that is carried. That means at this point that we are adjourned from open session, and we will adjourn in closed session momentarily. I'll invite the staff and other visitors to this meeting to exit. If you haven't been asked to be here, we will do an audit of that in a few moments' time. I will also discontinue the YouTube feed, and for practical purposes, we will not reassemble the YouTube feed at the end of this meeting. When we come back into the brief actions that are usually taken at the end of a council meeting. So for the public, we bid you good night and invite you to attend our next council meeting online a week from today. And for that, at this point, then I'm going to say that we're adjourned from open session, and we'll reconvene in closed session in a few moments' time as we've watched who's left. Where are we with? I'm going to turn our